Hi, my name is Annabelle Jones and I'm a biomedical engineering research student at the University of Technology in Sydney. And my research focuses on women's health in space travel. However, more specifically, I'm interested in the menstrual cycle and its adaptation into outer space, and how is estrogen production affected in microgravity environments. Ever since NASA's early days, the menstrual cycle has been a strange and mysterious topic for the engineers. The fact that women even had a period was once used as an argument as to why women shouldn't be allowed to be astronauts in the first place. To introduce everyone to the topic of menstrual health and space travel, I would like to share a story of the first period in space. In 1983, Sally Ride was to become the first American woman in space, and it just so happened the week of her period coincided with her space mission. This sent the flight engineers into absolute panic as they tried to figure out how many sanitary items that Sally Ride would possibly need for her week-long mission in space.
Is 100 the right number, they asked? No. That would be more than enough. You could cut that number in half and there would still be plenty, she replied.
And for anyone watching today that may be unaware, on average, a period will last around 4 to 8 days. Sanitary pads are usually changed every 4 to 8 hours, and the amount of blood loss during a period is anywhere between 5 and 80 milliliters. The story of Sally Ride in space certainly highlights a rude awakening for an entire industry. It does not take a rocket scientist to know that ever since humans first explored space, women have been the overwhelming minority. A woman still has not stepped foot on the moon. 2013 was the first year for there to be 50-50 female to male astronauts. As you can see, these charts show not just a gender imbalance between astronauts, but also a gender imbalance in the entire industry. And despite the number of female astronauts growing, attention to female-specific health and its adaptation into space still remains an understudied area. SpaceX is an example of a company that is not just interested in space exploration, but also the settlement of humans on alien planets. And the rapid advancement in rocket engineering has shifted conversation and culture when it comes to space travel. The question is no longer how will we reach alien planets, but what are we going to do when we arrive? So now we're faced with some unique questions. Can humans safely reproduce outside of Earth? How does conception even work in microgravity? And what are the mental health conditions that are unique to space that could impact reproduction? All of these questions open up conversation about a topic that is often dismissed and ridiculed, and that is the female menstrual cycle. Menstruation is not just any old biological function. It is fundamental to the continuation of life. And not to state the obvious, but the menstrual cycle is quite literally as old as humanity itself. Menstruation and the entire female reproductive system is a complex network of overlapping organs and systems. And we already know that space travel comes with extreme hazards. And some of these hazards include ionizing radiation, microgravity, hypergravity, isolation, confinement, and psychological stress. Some industry leaders have claimed that the menstrual cycle is immune to the effects of microgravity. However, as of March 2021, only 65 women have flown to space, and the majority of which choose to suppress their menstrual cycle with oral contraception. Therefore, any data that's collected about menstruation would be from a number far too small to draw any definitive conclusions from. So in short, nobody really knows how the menstrual cycle is affected by microgravity. So what do we know about periods in space? Well, studies have shown other bodily fluids to behave differently in space, such as the aqueous humor in the eye, kidney function, blood circulation, and even cerebrospinal fluid in the brain. One study, all the way back from 1994, expressed concerns regarding the risk of retrograde menstruation in spaceflight. Retrograde menstruation occurs when blood flows backward into the pelvis instead of out of the vagina during menstruation. No experiments were conducted regarding the direction of menstrual blood flow in microgravity, and as you can see by this diagram showing the direction of normal menstruation and the direction of retrograde menstruation. It is also well known that estrogen is essential for not just the menstrual cycle, but also women's overall health and well-being. So, how is estrogen actually made? Estrogen is made in the ovarian follicles during the menstrual cycle, and within the ovarian follicles, estrogen is actually secreted by granulosa cells. The granulosa cells are highlighted in red on this diagram. During the menstrual cycle, the pituitary gland releases follicle-stimulating and luteinizing hormones to the ovarian follicles, and that activates the thecal and the granulosa cells. Once stimulated with this hormone, theca cells increase absorption of cholesterol from blood vessels. The cholesterol is then used to synthesize steroids such as progesterone. Progesterone is then acted upon by enzymes to make androgens. However, the absence of aromatase make it impossible for the theca cells to produce estrogen on their own. The androgens diffuse to the granulosa cells where aromatase is present. The aromatase convert the androgens into estrogen within the granulosa cell. Newly formed estrogen then diffuses into the bloodstream and has a positive feedback on the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. But essentially, what all of this means is that both the theca and the granulosa cells work together to produce estrogen. Like I said before, estrogen is responsible for so much more than just menstruation. Estrogen is also responsible for cholesterol metabolism, regulates food intake, body weight, insulin levels, and bone strength. Once women go through menopause, menstrual cycle ceases, and as a result, estrogen levels drop significantly. And this is why postmenopausal women are 4 times more likely to develop osteoporosis than men. There have been some studies on estrogen levels in mice in space. The studies have shown that female adult mice that were menstruating at launch stopped menstruating during flight and also had reduced estrogen receptor levels in the uterus. It was concluded that spaceflight has a negative impact on the reproductive potential of mice. One question you may be thinking is, what's the point of researching menstruation in space travel? Well, space innovations often trickle down into Earthbound applications. Anything from solar panels, invisible braces, to memory foam came from space innovations. For this research, some possibilities include influencing research regarding menopause and osteoporosis on Earth, bringing light to how menstruation is dealt with in austere conditions such as women on submarines or women in the military or navy, and uncovers a new approach regarding reproductive health with microgravity. And ultimately, this research hopefully will contribute to further empowering women to make informed decisions regarding menstruation. For me, the most exciting part about this research extends beyond science and engineering and engages with human rights and the future of human rights in space travel. The stigma and shame generated by false information regarding menstruation has severe impacts on girls' and women's human rights. There are many young girls on Earth who struggle with the stigma and shame surrounding menstrual hygiene and health. And if you are interested in helping empower young girls on Earth, I'm currently assisting raising money for the Forward It charity who want to provide girls in northern Uganda with menstrual hygiene products. Any donation helps, and it's super important that even though we're looking into the future of space travel, we're still paying attention to the gender inequalities that are on Earth. Thank you for watching this video, and be sure to check out more videos from the Australian Space Biology and Health Symposium.